Namaskar, Professor.
Namaskar, sir.
How are you?
I'm very good, sir. Thank you. Thank you for taking this online class and welcome to IIT Delhi virtual class.
Thank you.
And we have in this group students from various backgrounds, various departments, from various years and levels of the education, some master students, some bachelor students, some also PhD
Okay.
students. Sir, we will first have an hour of listening to you
Okay.
on Upanishads and the
Okay.
scientific aspects in
Okay.
Upanishads and how our youth can take it forward.
Mhm.
And then we can have an hour of
Sure.
questions.
So, may I begin now? Okay. So, welcome to the interaction with IIT Delhi. I'm very happy to do that. We had a very good interaction last. We had a number of lessons, I think. We had a lot of talks and discussions. So, let me start with the title that's given to me is Upanishads, the scientific approach. Now, today being a general first day, I need to set the parameters in order so that you understand exactly what we are going to do, at least to some extent. Okay. One thing is that there is an understanding somewhere that if you are scientific, it simply means material sciences. In spite of the fact that the WHO in its recent release said that real health also means that the mind is healthy, not just the body is healthy. The health or the good situation, good condition of the mind is as essential as good condition of the body. So, what I am trying to say is science need not be a prejudiced way of looking at things. There are also prejudices in the spiritual field, we will come to that, from the scientific point of view, that only that is scientific which is material and which can be put in a test tube and which reacts and so on and so forth. In which case, psychology, parapsychology, the study of the collective unconscious and so on, which great scientists like Carl Jung had also experimented with, becomes unscientific, but that is not true. It is very scientific. So, let me define what I mean by a scientific approach. It means, can we start with a hypothesis? Even a geometrical theorem starts with a hypothesis. Pythagoras theorem. What is Pythagoras theorem? That the square of the base and the square of the altitude will make the square of the hypotenuse. But we don't know, it's a hypothesis. If you prove by drawing it, then you know, yes, it is so. It is the same in the study of the spiritual. Now, I want to draw a little line between spiritual and religious. Religious need not always be spiritual and spiritual need not always be religious. When you say religion, we are talking about an organized set of beliefs and systems. When you talk about spiritual, we are talking about exploring the inner being. And why is it called spiritual? Because in ancient times, that which was beyond the senses was called the spirit. I am not saying spiritual because we are dealing with the spirit which is in the bottle, which is also there, of course. Not Aladdin's spirit, but in the evening many people after 7 are fully absorbed in the spirit that comes in the bottle. You know what it means. I am not talking about that. I am talking about, suppose I say the spirit of enterprise. He has a spirit of inspiring people, the spirit with which I live. And in the deeper sense, the Upanishads and the great teachings of science, of spirituality, or what you call spiritual science, talk about the inner essence of our being, which is spiritual in nature. When I say spiritual in nature, it's not physical in nature. Although it is embodied, and therefore the body is physical while it is not physical but spiritual. That's what I mean by spiritual. So the scientific approach which we are trying to take, which is important because we are all in the field of physics and science and various other facts. So the approach which we are going to take is to look at the ancient hypotheses that came to us and then try to figure out if you can really find something true in all these. I have taken the Upanishads particularly because they are among the most ancient explorations into consciousness which has taken place in the world. Much before the Greeks looked into the meaning of existence, much before Socrates declared, "Man, know thyself." The Upanishads have already looked into this question and said, look at yourself first before you look at the outer world. Because if you look at yourself and find out your true essence, what you are, not just the body which we think we are, then your relationship with the outside world becomes much more symmetrical and balanced. So this is what we are going to do. So before I start, I will chant a mantra. Now don't get put off by this. When you say mantra, it simply means a yantra which fructifies in the mana, which is the mind. When you chant a mantra, it simply means that you are bringing some idea through sound into your own system. You don't have to call it soul at the moment, we'll call it the mind. This is the mantra. That which makes you cross the impassable barrier between the inner and the outer, seemingly impassable, not really impassable. So, that which makes you cross the mind that is beyond. Trayate, go beyond, to swim across. Mantra. This mantra comes from an ancient source. It's in the Upanishads. You might have heard it being chanted in many places before a meeting starts or a discussion starts or a satsang starts. And the mantra is Om. Let's not discuss Om right now because as we proceed we are going to get into understanding Om when we deal with the Upanishads. So keep Om aside, say that it's the first sound that is put in front of most mantras, and therefore it's called the pranava, that which gives life to the mantra. So Om, what is the mantra, the body of the mantra? Sahana Vavathu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavaha. You don't have to by heart this. Tejasvina Vaditamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai. This is the mantra. What does it mean? Why is it chanted before beginning the study of these sacred texts? The great texts that have come to us from time immemorial, which deal with that which is the essence of our being. Watch, Sahana Vavathu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai. You might see that there is one word which is being repeated again and again. Saha. Saha na Vavathu, Saha now Bhunaktu, Saha Viryam Karavavahai. So what is the meaning of this Saha? Saha means it's not merely a monologue, but it's a dialogue between the teacher and the taught. And the teacher is saying, Sahana Vavathu, may both of us be protected. What are we to be protected from? First, to study anything, you need to sit down in a safe place. Your IIT is safe, no problem. In a safe place, free from insects and other snakes and other creatures, and from the catastrophes that could be created by nature, like thunderstorms, hurricanes, and so on. So please protect me from that. Protect not me, protect you and me. Saha, both of us may we be protected. Also means may our minds be protected from being distracted by the sights and sounds of the world so that we can study. Sahana Vavathu. Sahanau bhunaktu. May you and I, both of us, be nourished. Bhunaktu. Now, nourished means first physical nourishment, of course. Yoga deals very well with this science of how to nourish your body, what is best for you, and so on and so forth. It means you need food for the physical body, but that's not enough. That's not the end of it. We also need to nourish our minds. We need to nourish our senses. We need to nourish our capacity to think and not allow it to degenerate. This nourishment for the body and the mind, the soul needs no nourishment. The body and the mind, for you and me, are also essential if we need to make a serious study of anything, especially such deep subjects. Saha viryam karavavahai. May the virya, the virility in you and I increase. When I say let the virility in you and I increase, that doesn't mean that we should allow our virility to act irresponsibly. It simply means may the strength to sit down and understand develop in both of us. Tejasvinavadi tamastu. May the tejas. You know what is tejas? Normally you say his face is full of tejas. Sometimes it could be because of good moisturizers, but anyway, the shining that comes through inner understanding is called tejas. So tejasvinavadi tamastu. May the face glow with understanding for both of us. Ma vidvishavahai. Let us not fight with each other. Now, when we sit down for a debate or a dialogue, we are not sitting for an argument. There's a sea of difference between an argument and a dialogue. An argument is when I think that I am right, you think that you are right, and then you see that what I think is right is not what you think is right, so there's a clash. This is an argument. You are trying to prove your point, I am trying to prove my point, head-on clash. A dialogue, on the other hand, is when two people sit together. In fact, too many is not too good. Two is the best. Daya, two. Two people sit together, it's not a monologue, and they discuss the matter. They say, okay, we are sitting together like good friends. Be careful, some gurus may run away if you go and sit near them. They would expect you to crawl on the floor. I don't. So, when you and I can sit together on a bench in the park, beautiful day, sun is just set, birds flying, we sit down and say, look, let's look at this problem, how to solve it. You and I. Not I am solving it or yours, but we are solving it. This is called dialogue. When that dialogue takes place, then there is no quarrel, no fight. So this is why ma vidvisha, let's not fight with each other, let's develop a dialogue between us. This is the Shanti mantra with which we begin this series of dialogues, this series of talks we are going to have on Upanishads And if you have listened to me till now, for the last maybe 10 minutes or 12 minutes, you have got some idea why we think it's a scientific approach. I am not trying to impose my beliefs on you. But when you hear me, don't impose your beliefs onto this system. Listen. Listening is a great art. You cannot listen if you keep comparing, because half your mind will be on comparing. Half your thought, oh, so and so said that, now this guy said that, now this M is saying this, gone. No more listening. We are comparing. So keep comparison away for a while we listen to what's going on. Because then you need, what we are trying to look at needs complete attention, total energy. And it's good that you are doing it now, because when you are very old and you have no energy left, you cannot look into the system. In the ancient days, the teacher, the student went to the teacher in the hermitage, according to the descriptions, carrying fuel in hand, which doesn't mean the student went lighting a firewood. Maybe he did that because the forest is also a dangerous place, but more than that, it means carry fuel in hand means go to the teacher and say, I have not wasted any of my fuel, I am still full of fuel, let me understand this. Not a car which has no petrol. So, this is the right time to look into these matters, not after you become old and you can't think properly or stand up even. So, fuel should be full. Why? Because this is something which needs real one-pointed attention to understand. Not what I am saying, I am talking about the Upanishad. Real one-point attention to understand, because we are going deeper and deeper into the essence of our minds, not just the physical world, and which is tricky. So the next step, I am going to now begin with understanding the word called Upanishad. Of course, there are many Upanishads. Before I come into that, since we are on the subject, where does this Upanishad come in the ancient teachings? Which part does it occupy? You know that the Vedas are 4 in number. One time, they were just scattered thoughts discovered by great rishis, experiences of great rishis. Then came a great man called Vyasa, Veda Vyasa, who compiled them together. This whole idea which was afloat, which was here and there, he codified it and classified it and compiled it, and therefore he is called Vyasa, because in Sanskrit the word Vyasa means a compiler. So people say Veda Vyasa, one who compiled the Vedas. Now he compiled this body of truth or truths which were scattered into 4 sections of Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda and Atharvana Veda. Okay. Now these Vedas, any one of these, Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva, have important sections, different sections. The first part is called the Samhita. Therefore, the Upanishads are also Vedas. Why? Because they come at the end of the Vedas. The first part is the Samhita. The second part is called the Brahmana, which is the ceremonial part, what ceremonies to be performed, for what purpose and so on and so forth. We will discuss at some point that also, why the ceremonies are performed. Now also we have many ceremonial welcomes. You can simply shake somebody's hand and say hello, but why the ceremonial welcome? For what? Formalities. So in the same way, the ceremonies, these are called, the ceremonial part is called the Brahmanas, Vedas. Then you have one part which is called the Aranyaka. Now, Aranya in Sanskrit means a forest. So, Aranyakas were that part of the Vedas which were studied in very personal contact between the teacher, the rishi, and the student in the forest universities. Today, we have so many universities. Why is it that universities want a lot of land? Why is it they want a lot of trees? Why do they want that kind of an atmosphere where you feel you are in some kind a civilized forest? Of course, there are buildings also, because that is what brings about the capacity to think clearly. Those days the universities were right there. There were no big buildings. There were small kutis, but they were in beautiful nature, on the lap of nature, near the Himalayas, the snows, or where there are plenty of huge trees standing like Ashwattha trees, people trees, banyan trees. The students sat there and studied, because that's when you really can go deep into your understanding. You cannot do that sitting in. Can we sit and study in Safdarjung market, please? How will we do that? You need to have an atmosphere, and the trees, the forest, the parks, these provide. So therefore Aranyaka means a forest. So they went into the forest to say, okay, I retire from ordinary life for the time being. I am going to apprentice myself to a master, a teacher, a rishi, and I am going to learn. So this is the Aranyaka part. Now, if you look at the Aranyaka part of the Vedas, many of the Aranyakas are Upanishads, which means from Aranyaka it's a gradual going on to the study of the Upanishads. So, therefore, the Upanishad forms the last part of the Veda, starting with Samhita. Since it is at the end, and since the last part is called the end, Anta, therefore it is called Vedanta. Vedas, Anta, end of the Vedas. There is a hidden meaning there. It also means it is that which, when understood, nothing more remains to be understood. It's the end of it. One doesn't have to go anywhere more. You have gone to the maximum depth that the mind possibly can, and there is an end to it. There is no more. Plus, it means Vedanta also means the ending of illusions and the opening up of reality. That's why also it's called Vedanta, end. So this is the Upanishad. This is where the Upanishad occurs. So it's ancient. Much before the Puranas and the Itihasas, the Upanishads already exist. All the great teachers, starting with Shankara, we hear of, there may be more before that we don't know about, have written commentaries on the Upanishads, especially the 11 principal Upanishads. So we will deal with them mostly in the next few days as the course proceeds. Now, we have understood where the Upanishad stands, which part. Now we should understand the word meaning of Upanishad. What is Upanishad? It's very important to understand the word meaning of what Upanishad actually is before we proceed into the study of one particular Upanishad to demonstrate what it's all about. So what is Upanishad? It has 3 syllables, Upa, Ni and Shad. The first one, Upa. Now, Upa in Sanskrit means, why in Sanskrit? Because it was an ancient language. You don't have to put any denomination into the great language called Sanskrit. Kalidas had nothing to do with religion. He did great poetry in Sanskrit. So Sanskrit is an ancient, Aryabhatta did all his scientific work in Sanskrit. So it's an advanced language, let's keep it like that. So in Sanskrit the word Upa means close, When I say close, not C-L-O-S-E, close, but go nearer, to move closer. You say, don't sit so far, you can't hear me, move closer, that kind of close. Now why close? I feel personally that in those days there was no internet and there were no loudspeakers and microphones. So, and the teacher was discussing something very serious. So the student had to sit close and listen to what is being said, and there was no COVID, Corona was not there. So you can dare to sit close and listen. So the student and the teacher sat close to each other, close, upa, and did upavasa. What is upavasa? So many people think upavasa means fasting. Today I had upavasa. Upavasa means to move closer actually. Vasa means to travel, to move, to go to a place. And upa means nearer, so move closer is what it means. So the word upa means first to sit close to each other and learn physically, which we can't do now, let's wear masks. But it also means that the mind becomes close to each other. You can sit very close to somebody, but if your mind doesn't match, there is no closeness. You want to run away. So, upa also means, when you say close, it means the teacher and the student, the movement of the waves of the mind of both are in the same rhythm, in the same rhythmic pattern. When this happens, if this happens, then even without words things can be understood. It's called your mind and my mind become sympathetic to each other. And therefore what is happening in mind is reflected. I'll give you a simple example. It happens even ordinarily. Suppose there is a crowded class. One person gets into the class, sits in one corner and says, yawns. Just watch, in 10 minutes there will be many people yawning. It's not as if the carbon dioxide from him has gone to others. It's a psychological reaction because the minds are all interlinked, and when something happens in one mind, it reflects in the other. Therefore, upa close, when you say close, it also means the minds have come closer so that what is happening here can happen there. And in those days, this teaching of the Upanishads was called rahasya because it could not be taught to everybody. Somebody comes to you and says, I want to learn the Upanishads. So what are you doing? Well, I am a murderer. So why have you come to learn the Upanishads? I thought I could commit better murders by learning. So what I am trying to say is that therefore it was taught to people who they thought were qualified to learn, because through the study of the Upanishads, one is going closer to the powerhouse, the source of all energy, and you can't give it to someone who can misuse it. To give the real knowledge to someone who can misuse it is like keeping a child in a small room full of dynamite, giving a matchbox and a matchstick, not enough, and also saying this is how you light the match. Therefore, some of this knowledge was kept as a rahasya. Of course, there might have been vested interest also, I can't say that, maybe. But I think one of the main reasons was that they wanted to keep it safe. Today, like you keep atomic energy in safe places, nobody wants to get radiation. In the same way, some of this precious knowledge was kept secret, therefore it was a rahasya, it was discussed in secret. And sitting close to each other, and also because the mind become close, they understand each other perfectly, what's going on even without words. Now there is also another meaning to this. If the Upanishads are trying to lead us to the ultimate supreme truth, if for the time being, then the ordinary mind as it is now cannot understand or become that truth. It can only go as close as possible. That's why it is sometimes dangerous to say I am the truth, because when I am there, there is no truth. The I itself is a problem. When the I goes, there is the truth. So you can go as close as you can. If you go too close to the sun, you get burnt. So you can go as close safely as possible. This is another meaning of the word upa, to be close, which means you can go as close as words can describe, to that which words the Upanishad itself says cannot describe. Now, we will get into this when we do some particular Upanishad. Now, do you think this is worth looking at, or am I talking mysterious sentences? Anyway, so upa. Now, I want to leave the central ni for the time being and go to the last syllable of Upanishad, Shad. Upani, Shad. Now, Shad means, simple meaning of Shad is sit down. Right, sit down. I am sure you are all sitting down now. If somebody is standing up, I know you are not interested in the subject, you think you want to get out of here. So, sitting down physically also indicates that you are interested in the topic. You are sitting down, that is one meaning. Actually, it also means that the mind has to sit down. Not enough if the body sits down. I can sit here and my mind can travel here and there happily, then that is not sitting down, because then you cannot listen. Your mind is distracted. So, Shad means to physically sit down. It also means get your mind to settle down, to sit down. Because I might be sitting here and my mind may be wandering. To achieve that purpose, you need to actually settle the mind down. So much of the process of studying the Upanishad is also settling the mind, which is the role that yoga has to play. We will come to that later. Then the great commentator Adi Shankara, he finds unusual meanings in words which are normally interpreted in another way. He said Shad also means, which is true if you look at the Sanskrit dictionary, shake up, agitate, shake up what? Shankara said it is shaking you up from the sleep of ignorance. Too big a word to say. He said it's shaking you up from the sleep of ignorance. It also means to put things upside down. You know, generally what happens, we have only one way of looking at something. There are multiple ways of looking at something. So this Shad, shaking up, means telling you, look, this is not the only way, there are other ways of looking at things. What you think is real may not be, and what you think is unreal may be real. Just because I can't see it with my senses, I can't conclude that it is so. This shaking up, which means making you think in different ways, not just a linear logic, but a fuzzy logic, let us say. This is called shaking up. Because the subject we are dealing with, the Upanishad, cannot be understood very easily unless we are ready to put everything upside down, topsy-turvy. In the Bhagavad Gita there is a chapter, the 15th chapter. It is called the Purushotthama Yoga, the yoga of the Supreme Being, Purushotthama. Now, Supreme Person, Purusha is person. It begins with a beautiful sentence. It's sometimes a little confusing. Urdhvamulam matashyakam Ashwattham prahuravyayam, which means there is an Ashwattha tree. You know, Ashwattha is people, It's an Ashwattha tree. Urdhva moolam, whose roots are above, atha shakam, whose shakhas, branches are below. Roots are up and branches. We have never seen such a tree. We have only seen trees whose roots are down and the branches are up. And here is the picture of a tree with whose roots are up and branches down below. The word Shad applies here. It's shaking you up, saying the dimensions which you are involved in may not necessarily be the dimensions which are absolute. There may be others. There may be other things to look at, other angles at looking at things. Now this particular verse with the branch roots above and branches below, from the yogic point of view, there may be multiple meanings to this. From the yogic point of view, it is actually a proper figurative expression of the human body. Look at the human body. What controls the whole system? What is the root from which the entire system is controlled? Where is it? Here. This is the root. And where are the branches? All this. Without this root and without the root functioning, none of these branches can function. So where is the root? Here. Isn't that an upside down way of looking at things? Actually, it is the right way of looking at things. Because all the master glands are here, from the pituitary down. And they are those who not only control the body but also control our moods. When I say I am feeling very nice and calm and peaceful, what does it actually mean from the point of view of the hormones? It means there is a little more than normal amount of serotonin moving in our blood. We feel good, the goodness factor. You have dopamine and everything is nice. When the dopamine amount becomes a little extra, more, then you see visions which you cannot understand, then you need to be treated. So, moods are also chemical. And where do they come from? They all come from here. This Sahasrara, as they call in yoga, is the center from which everything operates. This is the meaning of an upside down tree from the yogic point of view. There may be other meanings. So, this shaking up, Shat means, when you study the Upanishads, you begin to see, I hope we begin to see, that there are many more angles by which you look at things, which we have all accepted and said, this is all there is, there is nothing more than this. In fact, as we go into it in the second lesson and so on, I am going to discuss actual forms and how what we think is a particular form may not be. Even using our mind, our logic, one can work on this. Although ultimately we need to go beyond that. So, let us take the simple meaning, to shake us up from ideas which we have so that the mind opens to new ideas. Let us put it that way simply and move forward. Now there is the central word ni, which I didn't describe, we didn't discuss, ni. Ni is actually the word meaning, the root of the word nicha, which means down. Hindi word niche comes from ni. Ni means it is the attitude of the student who receives from the teacher. So, does it mean you have to sit down and the teacher has to sit up? No, no, no. Attitude. What attitude? If I say that I know everything, it is not possible to receive because my vessel is full. It cannot receive. Have you seen that even physically, if you want to pour a liquid from one vessel to another, there is no liquid in this. Where do you hold the vessel that needs to be filled? Down. Where is the vessel that pours? Up. Suppose I want to pour into this vessel and I hold it like this. Is it possible? No. Down, which means receiving. Keeping the mind open to receive. To receive, there has to be space. You can't receive if there is no space. Usually what happens is our minds are so filled with things that there is no space to receive anything new. I must tell you a small story. Don't worry, we have many classes. I want to establish this in a way that we follow from now on what we are doing. There was a Zen Master, and one day a student, a professor went to him. Please know nothing about professors here, I am not talking in general terms. This particular professor, I think sometimes students are happy when you say professors are like that. No, it's not like that. I am not meaning anything, Dr. Jyoti. Once a professor, a learned professor, went to a Zen master. You know what is a Zen master? Who is a Zen master? I think most of you know. Zen is a Japanese version of ways by which you can find the truth. I am trying to define it loosely. Went to a Zen master and said, "Sir, please give me the experience of Satori." You know, Satori is the word used in Japanese for illumination, for being enlightened. It's called Satori. Teach me Zen and give me Satori. So the master kept quiet for some time. He kept on repeating this. Satori is supposed to happen when the mind is all gone to pieces and there's only the conscious. Anyway, that we won't discuss. We don't want our minds to go to pieces. So, although sometimes I wonder if the madmen are better than us. If 1,000 years of sanity has brought about the world we live in, it's better that there some are insane. Anyway, so the master kept quiet for a while and then he said, "Okay, have tea." So he went inside and brought some tea. You know, Japanese do everything so ceremonially, so beautifully. So there was a nice table, and the table was a beautiful cloth, and there was the cup there, and he brought this wonderful kettle and poured the tea. He went on pouring the tea, the cup became full. He continued to pour. After a while, the professor said, "Sir, the cup is overflowing. You need to stop." So the master put down the kettle and said to the professor, "Your cup is overflowing. How can I give you Zen?" I think you get what I'm saying. If it's already full, if I pour Zen, the Zen will also come out. So the receiving instrument has to be empty. When it's empty, there is silence. In that silence, the truth of the Upanishad is revealed. When you actually touch, you know, it's interesting. You go to a dinner. In my part of the country, they call it a sadhya. Go to dinner, and food is being served. Everybody is chattering, talking, hey, this, that happened. Then the food is served, and everybody starts eating. Silence. We are absorbed in the food now. Who wants to gossip and chatter? So this silence is also a sign of not intruding into the quietness of the mind with our words and thoughts and reflections. And everything is clear, then there's something happens inside. So this is the word meaning although I went a little extra on it, of Upanishad. Why I am saying this is because this is what we are going to look at from now on. What is the Upanishad? Then, having known this now in some way, we are going to, from the next class onwards, take up one particular Upanishad. I will try to start with a short one, so that we study it properly. While we study it, please remember the introduction that we went through. You don't have to fill your mind with it, but understand it. You don't have to come back in the next lesson with the Zen Master pouring tea. Just understand it. Because then you will say, this guy is not pouring tea, so what am I going to understand? So this is what we are going to do, and we are going to do it step by step. Okay. The Upanishad which I am going to deal with tomorrow, not tomorrow, in the next class, is a very short Upanishad. We will start with that. We did that also in the last session, but I don't think we completed it. We just went a little bit on it. It's called the Mandukya. It's a Mandukya. Now, actual Sanskrit meaning of the word Manduk is a frog. So you can call it the Frog Upanishad. Why the frog? Why would an Upanishad so lofty be called a Frog Upanishad? If you want to understand this, if you go to the Chandogya Upanishad, another one, little larger, you will see in the night when the rain comes, the frogs are croaking away. Then the Rishi says to the student, they are singing the Upanishad, the frogs, which means it does not matter from where the knowledge comes from. It could be something as lowly as the frog. The most important thing is the content. Some people have gone to the extent of saying it maybe there was a rishi called Mandukya Rishi who made the money. It is not possible. It's simply to demonstrate that even a frog can teach us wisdom. In fact, a frog is a very symbolic form of a person who has understood wisdom. I'll tell you. A Manduk, since we are on the Mandukya Upanishad, a frog first lives in water as a small, what is it called, I don't know, tadpole. So egg hatches and it's a tadpole, and then it moves in the water. At some point the tail drops off. Then it becomes a frog, and then what does it? It jumps up onto the land. From now on, it can live on the land, it can live on water, both. So, a person who has touched the realities discussed in the Upanishad can live on this earth and also in the water of the spiritual as he likes or she likes. And the tadpole's tail has fallen off, which means it no more has the tail. In ancient times, the student had a shikha to demonstrate that I am still a brahmachari, I am a student. When it is cut off, then you are a sannyasi. And when I say sannyasi, it doesn't mean you are wearing a garua robe. If you want to know the definition of sannyas, you have to read the Gita, the 6th chapter, which is Dhyana Yoga, where Krishna says what actually is the meaning of the word sannyas. Not who doesn't do any work or changes his robes or shaves his head, but one who distinguishes between the real and the unreal. So the frog now has become amphibious, which means it can live in the water, it can live in the land. A person who touches the truth of this Upanishad while living in this world knows that he can also live in another realm. And his life on this earth, or her life on this earth, is completely different, because deep down is touched the essence of his or her own being. So, just because it's called a frog Upanishad, don't think it's silly, it's very deep, the Mandukya. It's so important, this Upanishad is so important that even years before Shankara, who is the biggest commentator on the Upanishads, his teacher's teacher called Gaudapada wrote 1,000-page commentary on it, sitting in Badrinath somewhere. And then Shankara wrote another 1,000 pages of commentary on the Karika of Gaudapada. Why I am saying this, not that we should do that, but we can't. What I am trying to say, it's such an important Upanishad. And how many verses does it have? Not verse. How many sentences does it have? How many sutras does it have? Only 12. And in these 12 verses, it illustrates the entire gamut of life, existence, being, which actually, even though you can't put in a test tube, because it's not a physical matter, you can yourself understand it because it relates to each one of us. It's a universal truth, but individually it relates to each one of us. Why? Because the Mandukya Upanishad discusses only the states of consciousness. It doesn't say you should do this or you should not do that. No. It says here is life, here are the states of consciousness which is common to all. Let us look into this and understand if there is a state of consciousness which is beyond this. You cannot understand that which is beyond unless you understand what is here and then are able to transcend it. This is the subject matter of the Mandukya Upanishad. 12 verses. This we will do in the next lesson. I think I have talked enough. It has become a monologue now. Even though I have 10 minutes less, about 9 minutes to 1 hour. So, if you want to have any doubts regarding what we discussed just now or something which you conclude from this or have some idea about, we have half an hour to ask questions and discuss the matter before we go into the body of the Upanishad.
So we can invite students to raise hand and then speak
Okay.
once we invite you.
Right. But please give me the freedom to answer questions only which I understand. Because I don't know what questions you ask, so I can't say I will answer all your questions. I may not know some answers. Though it's so difficult to say you don't know, everybody knows everything. But so I reserve the freedom to not answer a question by saying I don't know the answer to this. Whatever I know, I can answer, or I'll find out how to answer. Please.
I see Dheeraj's hand going first, so maybe I can
Dheeraj?
invite Dheeraj.
Yeah, namaskar, sir. Uh, my question is that, like, what is the difference between Upanishads and Aranyak? Like, since you mentioned that Aranyaks also were discussed in forest, and Upanishads also were like a continuation of that. So I didn't precisely get the difference.
I'll get. See, much of the body of the literature called Upanishad is also the Aranyaka. But in the Aranyakas, in some Aranyakas, there are also discussions on ceremonial practices and other things. So that you can separate it out. The deeply philosophical portions of the Aranyakas is itself the Upanishad. You don't have to make a distinction at all actually. The Upanishads were studied in the Aranyas. So there is no distinct, that's why I said there's a smooth blending into the body of Upanishad, the Aranyakas. In fact, some Upanishads are also called Aranyakas. So the distinction is not watertight. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Next,
more?
can I invite Neha?
So, my question is like something I think of something these days. Like, how do you know that you're ready for a guru? Like, I've emptied everything, and how do I know like I've found my guru? Like, this is something I've been wondering these days, and since you're here, I thought I'll grab the opportunity.
Okay. Let me tell you, Neha, there is no need of finding a guru right now, okay? Because it's better not to have a guru than to end up in wrong hands. Right? So take your time. You have gurus who teach you physics and so on. They are also gurus in a way. So if you treat someone who's teaching you the Upanishads or yoga, or like the professors in college who are teaching you subjects and not asking you to become totally beholden to them, then that's a good choice. You know what I mean? If somebody says, I can tell you, I'll teach you only if you surrender totally to me, I think as a young person you should run away from this, because that's not a good idea. The idea is take first learn from texts, learn from talks, and then when you think about it carefully, don't jump into choosing a teacher because either the teacher is smart or that something like that. So be careful. A good teacher may be like a frog, but he may be a good teacher. You know what I mean? So there is no hurry to do this, but the very fact that you are thinking about this is a good idea. It's a good fact. That means you are reflecting that all I know is not enough. There is something there and I need to look at it. Good thought. Stay with that and allow it to mature. When it matures, the brain will take you to the right place. Don't be in a hurry on this. You are better off without a wrong instruction than landing into something which gives you all wrong ideas about life. And if you ask me, you don't have to run away into the cave or the forest. I did for a specific purpose to understand this matter. You can do it even at home, even in your, when you're doing other things in life. Set apart a time for that where you do only reflections, reading on the spiritual topics. That's the better way to go. Anyway, now we are going to have a series of scientific approach to the Upanishads. So let's go through that. At the end of it, then think about it. What do you say?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Next, can I invite Anjali?
Thank you, sir. Namaste, Shriya. This is me. I come from a social science background, and
Very good.
my question is regarding that. So you said that the meaning of in Upanishad is sitting near. So there has been a lot of debate in social sciences about the exclusion of studying Vedas and Upanishads. So if you could shed light on how we perceive the meaning of our ancient text, and how should we carry the philosophy into social sciences now, if I had to think of the application and how it is manifested in our society.
Right. Unfortunately, Anjali, much of our social sciences in the present form that we have come from Western sources. Okay. If you want to see how prejudiced the Western world very often is regarding the traditions in this country, you just need to see BBC regularly. Anything that you do is bad, or it is retrograde, or it's something which is useless. You see, from my understanding, Something was kept secret because they want the right people who are qualified to learn it, not by birth. See, somewhere along the line, we have been made to believe, you see, it's like this. Suppose I am a film star, suppose, and I will encourage my son to become a film star. And the other man outside who is not in my family may be a better actor, but he hardly gets a chance. Why? Because I want to promote. In the same way, I think some of the ancient scholars who were respected by the kings and given a lot of respect, they thought my son should also become like me. And so this caste system kind of started. I don't think it was there before. Therefore, it was taught to a person who was really interested, not because he belonged to say, okay, in that case, the greatest of the rishis, Vedavyasa, his mother was a fisherwoman. So what kind of, so he was born as a bright man and he studied and therefore he became a rishi. Now, so I think these projections in social sciences which are given are generally so Western oriented that anything Oriental is considered to be retrograde. We should think of that also. Plus the fact that Manu himself calls, people say, oh, they are Manuvadis. No, Manu himself calls a person who does not have the qualities which may be defined as Brahmanical to be just a Brahmana Bandhu. So, today you may have lots of people who belong to a particular caste but who have no qualities. So, from quality it became self-interest. This is where the whole caste system, I think you should write a new thesis on this social sciences. Write it from the Indian point of view. Give them, let BBC say what it wants. Put a new, look, when you go for an aptitude test, any subject, don't you have a test when you decided what is your aptitude? And don't they select people who have the right aptitude? I think that was the case in the ancient times, because you will see a lot of mix up. All, look, many rishis were born as Brahmins. Most of the avatars are Kshatriyas. So, except Parashuram and this little fellow who came, all are Kshatriyas. And what does the rishi do? He worships the avatar. And who is the avatar? He is a Kshatriya, he is a warrior. So, there is a balance in these matters. Dronacharya was by birth a Brahmin, according to the Puranas. What did he teach? Art of war, how to make ballistic missiles. Right? So, it is like that. So, it is not as if we should take a fresh look at this established theories of social science as given to us by the Western thinkers and try to bring some change in this. It is not like that. Look, I personally was born in a Muslim family. Today I teach Upanishads in Sanskrit, that is a different story. When I was young, I went to so many ashrams in the Himalayas, so many teachers. Nobody asked me where were you born or what were you born as. They looked, are you ready for it? Are you interested in it? That is all there may be rare instances, but generally not. This is the ancient traditions that we have today. Ashwattha was the son of Drona. He was a great warrior. Vyasa's mother was a fisherwoman. Avatars were Kshatriyas, not Brahmanas. Yet the Brahmin was worshipped and given respect because he had wisdom. Now, if the wisdom is present in someone who is not born into a particular, that person is also respected. So, we need to take a new look at these matters. I am an example. Today my entry to any so-called sacred places is not banned. Why? Because people look and say, oh, he understands, that is enough. So, understanding is the main thread that goes through the ancient social system in India, not the outward. So since you are in social science, you should need to change the system. Look at it in a different way. Huh? Okay? It's a revolutionary work if you can really do it. There will be a lot of objections, there will be a lot of problems, but you will get through it, I am telling you.
I'll definitely try. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do see hand of Mohit, but his video is not visible. Mohit?
How
Yes,
did you
sir.
see the hand when the video is not visible?
Sir, the digital hand, it's like
Oh,
the
okay.
click the button. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Sir, my question is just more personal to your experience in life. Sir,
Yes.
if I am not wrong, at the age of 9, you
Mm-hmm.
just leave your regular works and just go.
Now the vessel is not empty, it's already full of my biography. Anyway, proceed. I'm joking. Okay.
You just leave your regular works and just goes and to Himalayas even, and there you we can say you increase your adhyatm. Uh, sir, what was the we can say the state of your mind or the belief we can say that you just leave, you just separate yourself from this world?
Okay. 1 minute. Let me clarify, Mohit. I didn't go at the age of 9. I couldn't have gone to the Himalayas. I went at the age of 19. Okay, point one clarification. Second clarification, I went, but you see me here, so I came back. I'm just, since you asked me, I'm clarifying certain things. I went at the age of 19. After 3.5 years, I was back onto the same place from where I left. But there was a period of preparation, which I had to do. So I went. My state of mind, you asked, what was the state of mind which moved me to run away? Not at 9, at 19. Teens are the time when the mind is made. There are so many influences coming from all sides. Having reflected on that, I said, before I complete my teens and become T, which means 19, 20, before I become a T, I said, let me look at life as for the few years in the past I have looked at it in a different way, and if I stay here in this circumstance, I may not be able to conduct my research into my mind. And also I was very fond of freedom. Actually all of us are fond of freedom. Even a small child, if you keep it in a room, close all the doors and windows, give all the toys, how long will the child stay there? It will want to break the window or jump out and run away. It's there inherent in us. And I was also filled with that, that desire to be free, which may be called a desire to liberate myself, physically from the cage in which I thought I was. Well, it was a nice cage. It was gilded, golden, but it was still a cage. A cage can be wood or metal or iron or gold, it's still a cage. I felt there is no space for my wings to unfold. So, in this state, I was waiting to break the cage and get out. So, I ran away. Many young people in their teens get this desire to rebel, because it's actually the wanting to be free that is coming out as a rebellion. Since parents don't understand it, there is always a clash. I also had a clash that I thought it's not worth sitting in this clashy business. Get out from here. So I ran away. That was the reason. And my mind, I did not hate my parents or anybody. I left because I thought there are much more things to learn than what I am learning here. Believe me, I used to sit in the school and college and look out of the window wondering what I was doing inside this room. So I ran off to open spaces. I suffered a lot because the cage in which I was a golden cage, regularly fed and so on. I went, there was nothing to do, I have to fend for myself. Believe me, Mohit, I used to get into trains without a ticket and see the TT and get out at the next station. So, and then I found a teacher. I think if you're really sincere and you put your mind to studying something, the teacher also comes from somewhere. I found my teacher. I lived for 3.5 years. I learned a lot of things, and the teacher said, now go back. Go back and lead your life, because now you will not get lost. Now you can stay in the hardest and the most strongest cage and still be able to come out and go when you want. So, with this confidence, I came back and I didn't sink into the morass, rather I stayed afloat, and I am still afloat, I hope. So, please correct this, not 9, 19.
Yes, sir.
And Mohit, I went, but I also came back. You know why I came back? Babaji told me, my master, I call him Babaji, father. He said to me, suppose you are sitting in a cave 10 years, doing 10 hours of meditation. At the end of 10 years, you say, I am free of all vices now. I don't get angry, I am not jealous, I am free. He asked me a very simple question, who will you get angry with in a cave? What will you be jealous of, the walls of the cave? There is nothing there. You can find out where your mind situation is, how your mind situation is, only when you walk out of the cave and come in contact with the public. When I come out of the cave, get into a crowded bus, somebody kicks me on my leg, then I know where I stand. Or I see somebody with better hair, I say, oh my God, look at my hair. See that? So, you can understand yourself only in contact with the world. So, therefore, he sent me back. But I must say that that period of 3 years which I spent very important for me. It was a period of growth. It was like the caterpillar that builds the cocoon and sits in the darkness for some time, and then the cocoon breaks and he comes. What has the caterpillar become? A butterfly. For me, that was, it could be, this metaphor kind of appeals to me. You need solitude. You need to figure out things. Once you're figured it out, come out of the shell and share your colored wings with others. Right, Mohit?
Sir, we are also at the same age and at the same
How
level,
old are you?
and
How old are you?
19.
19. Don't run away.
Yes, sir. I'm thinking, sir, the desires you think are the same as I think also. And I just want to say, ask, why not I just take a leave for some period
Ah,
to,
you can do that. You take leave for some time and try to explore. But make sure where you get your food and all that, practical difficulties. And if you are going to the Himalayas, I must warn you, take enough warm clothing, especially during, I am being practical.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Professor, we have, I will do for another 5 minutes, okay?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
We
So I
have
think we can take a one last question.
one question, yes.
Okay. So Nilesh.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah,
Nilesh
Nilesh?
here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So my question is actually divided into some 2 or 3 parts. So, but
Okay.
technically it's still a one question. So,
Okay.
so first I would like to understand how the and why there was a natural progression from the Vedas to Upanishads. So, what makes it different from the Vedas, and why was it even necessary to actually go from the Vedas to Upanishads?
Okay.
Then my second part would be that how can you actually explain the essence of the Upanishad in maybe one or two sentence? And
Okay.
then thirdly, is what I believe is that the Upanishads at that time when it was actually compiled and formed,
Mm-hmm.
it was actually done in a certain structure and in a certain context and environment. So, how
Mm-hmm.
do you actually explain to me, since the COVID times are going on, we are actually doing this all virtually, and the world has drastically changed a lot since then. How the content or the way it was delivered is still relevant in today's time?
Well, let me start with the third question first. Now that the COVID has come and gone and we live in danger and that we have the internet, so we are doing our modes of knowledge sharing is also different, right? Let me tell you that the Upanishad has always said that life is uncertain even before COVID-19 came. Upanishad was not waiting for COVID-19. They always said this world is uncertain. You never know what happens. Who knows? Who knew the virus was coming? Nobody knew. So, this world by its very nature is impermanent and can create, and death is certain. When we used to talk about the Upanishadic concept of death, people used to say, oh, this is all just, I will die only when I am 90. Suddenly this COVID, you see people who are 20 years old dying. So, I would say in the modern context, the truths expressed in the Upanishads are much more relevant than they were even in those ancient times. One. Second, I am not a anti-technology guy. I think technology has progressed. It can be used for good purposes also, apart from just entertainment. And therefore, that we are using the internet to study the Upanishads is a plus point. It's not a minus point. So, it is very relevant even today. Why? Because the Upanishad talks about human beings, and human beings have been the same now and then. Why? Look at the minds of the human being. Then also we were selfish, then also we had fears, then also there were wars. Go to the Ramayana, battle. Then also there were good and bad people. Then also there were rishis who were telling them, look, this world is impermanent, try to find out what is the reality. So the Upanishad, even though it originated many hundreds of years ago, it is relevant even today because human beings are human beings and Upanishad deals with human beings, with the human mind. So I think it's relevant. I think I have touched on 2 points already. About how the Upanishads came from the Vedas and why they were differentiated. It's a long story. I'll try to make it short for you. The Vedas have 4 important sentences in all the Vedas, which are called the Mahavakyas, the great utterances. The Mahavakyas, one is, I am Atma Brahma, which means my Atman is the Supreme Brahman. One Mahavakya. The other is Tat Tvamasi, you are that. And the third is Prajnanam Brahma. Brahman is self-effulgent, knowledge that is self-effulgent. Aham Brahmasmi, I am the Brahman. These are the 4 Mahavakyas. The entire literature of the Upanishads was created to explain these cryptic sentences. So, that part of the Vedas which explain the Mahavakyas are the Upanishads. And since they come at the end of the Samhita portions, they are called Vedanta, end of the Vedas. I think I have kind of touched upon all your 3 points. I'm glad you asked this question. It is very important to understand, yes, before we proceed further. Thank you. What's your name once more?
Nilesh.
Nilesh. Thank you, Nilesh.
Thank you.
So, Professor, I think we should wind up now.
Thank you so much, sir. And I also seek your permission, because now you're a professor at IIT Delhi, that students can call you Professor M.
But that is only a passing phase, I think. Anyway, thank you, sir. Thank you
sir.
very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.